power go that you're storing?
It goes directly into the local Idaho power grid. And that's the thing about electrons is, once you push them into the stream, they go wherever the demand takes them. So all of our power, 100% that was generated here in Jerome, would go directly to Idaho Power. Now, as a matter of economic demand, electric necessity, or something along those lines, Idaho Power might decide to apply that power elsewhere. They could include it in sales that they make to California. They could include it for transfers to other local utilities. They provide, I believe, some power to Vista. I believe they provide power to some of your local co-ops. Things like that. So that's really where the power goes. Once we sell the electrons to Idaho Power, that's up to them.
Let me just add on to that. So the Idaho PUC, Public Utilities Commission, has something called the native load requirement. It applies to Idaho Power, to Vista, and Rocky Mountain. And it says that you have to service your own customers before you send power somewhere else. So the only reason that they're sending power somewhere else is when there's a surplus in their own system. And then 95% of the money they make from those surplus sales come back and are managed at the PUC level to offset future rate increases. 5% is allowed to go to Idaho Power for whatever purposes they want. So whether you're in Idaho Power service territory or Rocky Mountains or Vistas, you're getting all the electricity that you need. And when your utility will export it, they're doing so in a manner that's going to help keep future rate increases lower than they would otherwise be.
I just also have another practical consideration. This is something I learned from experience on the projects we tried to get going here in Idaho and didn't quite work. Main reason they didn't work was that we didn't have transmission capacity to move from these rurally sited projects into load areas. So that even constrains power that's supplied to the grid in Idaho to Idaho even more so than you would say in another state like Arizona that has much more robust connections to California. Here it's kind of, we're in Idaho and pretty much we gotta be as close as possible to load or we have trouble moving the power because all of your power lines around here are completely full.
So a big question would be about the aquifer. I think that's probably the number one that would come up. Rate increases, we know that rates never decrease. So you may want to talk a bit about that, but also how would you protect the aquifer if you were to come in there?
Sure. One of the nice things about solar technology is that we use less than 1 acre-foot of water per year on an ongoing basis once construction is completed. And the only reason we use that is to clean the dust off the panels. We literally have guys that go out here with squeegees and clean off the panels. So, and the rest of that water is for dust control and water and what landscape we have. So the ongoing water use is extremely low, and the amount of water we use for construction is strictly for dust control. And what we normally do, and then you shadowed this with an earlier question you had, is if there's a water well on site that we can take advantage of, we'd surely love to use on-site water if it's legal and it's available, and we can make it work. But 9 times out of 10, what we do is we truck water in from a local water company, local city, and that takes care of the construction water. And then we have 20,000 gallons on site for fire protection, and then we'll have a smaller reservoir for on-site uses.
So I think the bigger question would be in case of an accident.
Yes.
Things getting down into the aquifer, just rain and hitting your equipment and going through batteries and stuff and hitting the ground. What kinds of things do you have that would protect it?
The first step we would do in the development side is we do an environmental impact statement, third party that would be agreed upon by all parties. We'd do a full EIS. Who would have access to the documentation of the aquifer depth, runoff patterns, soil retention, wetlands, all that. And we would do a full-blown environmental impact statement to ensure that whatever construction methodology we use, whether we're creating impervious surface, whether we need to have retention ponds, you know, how substantive the basis of the boxes would be. There is no documented runoff from containers or from solar panels. We have study after study that we would share. There's nothing, we're not creating any effluent, any runoff from normal conditions. In the case of a catastrophic failure, we have to have a plan, right? And that's why we have a site-specific plan that would be in line with the EIS. So whether we have built-in containment, or we have containment that's deployed in the event of an incident, that would all have to be approved as part of the permitting process. Whether you have it in the wetlands board, whether it's the planning commission, the county commissioners, that would all be part. That's probably the heaviest lift anytime we go in, is to ensure that we're not gonna have a negative impact on the attic, right, or the environment.
And in terms of potential contaminants that can get in the water, solar panels are basically like pieces of glass. They don't have liquid inside them. There's not a component in there that could leak out in powder or solid or liquid form. When these things get broken, they look like pieces of, like a broken windshield that you pull off a car, and we dispose of them in waste dumps, or we try to recycle them if at all possible. They've got so much copper and so much metal in them nowadays that the recycling prices are starting to get to the point where we can recycle panels.
And we don't local landfill, we
Yeah.
don't use your space, we go outside, we have third parties, national contracts, they'll come in and cart out any damage. So if we end up getting a hailstorm, and we have a lot of panels damaged or something like that,
They're not gonna land.
they're not gonna land here, we bring them out to third party, approved, DEC, DEP approved.
And even if they're broken, they're not gonna leak, and the same with the battery, the whole system is sealed and contained, so there should be, and they're designed to not permit any chemicals to exit the facility just through normal operations.
And that's the big reason why we don't put water stir on burning battery systems, we don't want to create that secondary runoff.
Did you have more questions?
Thank you.
Probably another one or two, and then we'll have to wrap up. So what kind of lifespan would that have?
We built these things to last 40 years. And what'll happen with the batteries is batteries, like, as you know from your cell phone, they degrade over time. So we have built into our financial projections for the project, essentially going in and pulling, tire cells out and replacing them with new cells, so that the battery will maintain at least 80–85% of its original design capacity throughout its life. The solar panels, you don't have to do that so much unless there's physical damage to them, or we may decide at some point that the panel technology has gotten so good that we want to replace with a higher voltage, higher capacity panel. We might do that, but we haven't done that on any RWE projects as of yet. So the solar panels sit out there for a full 35 to 40 years, and then the battery units stay there, but then the individual battery cells get replaced as they degrade.
Okay. All right. I think that's all the questions that we've got time for, so I appreciate it. Any final thoughts?
No, thank you all for hosting us.
Yeah.
It's been great speaking with you today.
Thank you, appreciate you coming.